Oral contraceptives, or the pill as it's more commonly referred to, has been around for around 60 years now. And yet we're still learning about how the female body is affected by it. Recently, a team in Ottawa looked at how oral contraceptives used during puberty or adolescence may affect brain development. Joining me now is Nafissa Ismail, Associate Psychology Professor and uOttawa Research Chair in Stress and Mental Health, who helped lead this study. Welcome to the show, Nafissa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is not a small finding. In fact, I think it's huge. Is this the first study of its kind into this?
There's been some work, not much. Some work has been done looking at the effects of oral contraceptives on the brain and on cognitive functioning, but we are the first ones to investigate what happens when we begin taking the pill at such an early stage during puberty and adolescence.
Right. So I read this with keen interest because my daughter started the pill quite early as an adolescent as in pain management for very painful periods. The conversation of how it might affect her cognitive growth or brain development was never discussed. That to me is concerning. So what compelled you to start this research?
Yeah, what compelled me is really the fact that we do regularly prescribe it to young girls for reasons other than pregnancy prevention, such as acne, heavy periods, pain, menstrual cramping, and so on. And it's true that the pill will help these symptoms. It will help all these symptoms that are due to hormonal imbalance. But these are nonetheless synthetic hormones that we take in our body. And the puberty and adolescence are two periods that are so critical for brain reorganization and remodeling to set the stage for adulthood. And it's a natural process and it's governed by our natural hormones. But when we take in these synthetic hormones that come from the pill, these synthetic hormones are going to bind to the same receptors that our endogenous hormones, natural hormones, would bind to. And so our hormones cannot have their actions, and rather we leave the remodeling and reorganizing of our brain during this critical period to the synthetic hormones.
Okay, so tell me about some of the findings then, because I think these are really interesting.
So yeah, it's really just the beginning. We have a lot of work still to do, but even in this early work, we are already seeing that there are structural and functional differences between women that have been on oral contraceptives versus those that have never taken oral contraceptives. So we do see changes in gray matter volume, and in most of the regions, it was a reduction in gray matter volume. Gray matter is that tissue that encompasses our neurons. So we could see it as sort of a reduction in the number of neurons in various brain regions. But what we did notice is that where we do see a reduction in the gray matter volume, we see an increase in white matter volume. And that's the tissue that allows communication between the brain regions. And it's sort of as though our brain is compensating for that neuronal loss within specific brain region. And it's saying, you know what, we're losing neurons, but I'm going to increase this white matter so that the regions can continue to communicate together. And so we're seeing this increased white matter. Whether these have any implications on cognitive performance in women is still at an early stage. So we did give a cognitive task to our participants, to our young women, and we were looking at emotional memory. And while we did not find any difference in their performance on the task, we did find that those that were on oral contraceptive had greater activation in brain regions that are involved in memory and emotion processing. And that could mean several things. It could mean that perhaps they're more sensitive to emotional stimuli. It could mean that the brain is having to work harder to process these stimuli. So it could mean a lot of things, and we need to dig further to better understand what these differences mean. But these differences are there.
Okay. So knowing what you know now, I mean, I think this is huge. Where do we go from here? What are the next steps now that you know that you've had these findings, you've published this? What's your next step?
Yeah, great question. We're interested in examining other types of memory now, because this was just one aspect of memory, was emotional memory. But we're interested in examining the impact of oral contraceptives on verbal memory, spatial memory, social memory, and so on. So we really want to try to see what the impact of this is on cognitive functioning and memory formation. We're also interested on the mood aspect of all this, because many women report anecdotally that they suffer from depressive symptoms once they start taking the pill, or that they experience mood changes. And given the findings that we have on emotion processing, we do think that perhaps there is something here linking to depression. And we would like to dig further so that we can then develop contraceptives and help towards the contribution of the development of contraceptives that are better suited for women health and mood of women, and maybe have less of these negative effects and side effects.
Okay, well, I'm personally going to be following along. I want to know more about this. I hope you'll come back and join me when you learn more. But if people want to read this published study, where is it published?
So it is published in the journal Hormones and Behavior. We can access it through my website, has the reference for it, so you can find the reference on my laboratory website. And if you want a full text, feel free to email me and I'll be happy to send it along.
Okay, we'll put all of that up on the video that goes out on social. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Candice.